So I realized the other day that I started home recording more than 30 years ago. Yeah, I owned my first four-track recorder in 1995. So I thought, why don't we get a little nostalgic and why don't we jump back in time 30 years and look at what's actually better about home recording in 2025 compared to 1995? Because I know I get nostalgic too for the Tascam or the Yamaha or whatever you had for the tape recording, going into the studio, printing a bunch of cassette tapes and putting them in the boot or the trunk of your car, driving around to gigs with your mates and just like buying concert tickets for 20 bucks from the local CD or record store. None of those things really happen these days in 2025. But I also think that we've got some pretty big advantages in the home studio in 2025 compared to what I was going through back in the early and mid 90s. I'd love to hear from you, though, if you've got your thoughts, your opinions on this matter. What do you think? Do you think things really are better 30 years later here in 2025 than in 1995? Did you start in 1965? Do you have even more experience in this sort of stuff? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Let's get all nostalgic and reflective. The thing about nostalgia, though, is we kind of wear rose-colored glasses sometimes when we get nostalgic. We think back on things we did without really thinking about how good we have it now and how much progress has been made. So let's dive in to the 10 things that are better in 2025 than 1995. And number one is pretty sort of just generic and ubiquitous, and that is digital recording. The fact that I can pick up my phone or my iPad or a Mac or a PC and record. I mean, just going from like four-track analog tape to four-track digital recording was an absolute boon, was amazing just to be able to have the ability to hit record and record straight away. Deleting something was like bang, hit a button. You could cue back to the start of something by just pressing a button. In the old days, back in my day, there's going to be a lot of back in my day, I'm sorry. Get off my lawn, yelling at clouds. Back in the earlier days, we had tape. And look, I was from the era where tape was put in a compact cassette into a Tascam and hit and record. Before that, there was actual reel-to-reel tape. There was actual quarter-inch and bigger inch tape that people would have to actually thread into a machine and record to. Now, very, very early on, so I'm talking early high school, must have been around 1992, I did record in an analog studio, the first and only time I've ever recorded in an analog studio. And I got to tell you, it was a pain. Like, I was playing, I just learned how to play guitar at this point. I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And every time they did a take on this multi-track, I think it was a 16-track multi-track tape recorder and mixing desk, yeah, rewind the tape, cue it up, punch in. All of these things that we just don't have to worry about now because we're in the digital realm. You hit a button and you can just record. Number two is that we have infinite recording now. You have what I like to call unlimited retries. So there's no shortage. Back in the day, there it is again, back in the day, we used to have tapes. I had to go and buy a 10-pack of TDK, and you couldn't use the crappy tapes. You had to at least use chrome tapes in a four-track recorder. Otherwise, your recordings would be absolute dog's stuff. So you had to make sure that you had decent quality cassette tapes. And then when you'd recorded on all those cassette tapes, you had a decision to make. There wasn't no, I'll just back it up to the cloud. No, there was just the hard copy of the tape that you had. And if you ran out of tapes, you had to make the tough decision of recording over something else. Think about that for now. Like, you think about the idea of having to go back to another song and like, well, I guess I can't keep the original mix and master of that song because I've run out of tape and I need to record something else on it. And then, DAT tape came in, and then digital came in, and then computers came in, and then backup and cloud storage. And now we almost have infinite recording. I call it infinite recording. I know it's not, but when you can walk out there and you can buy like a 12 terabyte SSD for like $100 compared to, I was paying $40 in 1995 prices for a box of 10 TDKs. That's pretty massive, isn't it? So the infinite recording. Number three, and this one's really wacky because I hear a lot of lo-fi recordings where they're trying to bring tape hiss and noise back into the recording. The warble, the hiss, the noise, the crappiness, that was analog recording, we now crave it. We think digital is too clean. And look, I agree. I must admit, when I'm recording in a digital environment, I do. I add a little distortion. I'll add a little saturation or an exciter or boost some high frequencies just to feel something, man. No, just to get that kind of analog warmth because digital with its precise recording of ones and zeros, it's very precise, but it can be a little harsh because it doesn't have that warmth we have with tape. Now, people going back in and adding tape hiss and adding warble and adding like record scratch sounds, can't say that I'm fully on board with that. I think folks that are doing that don't remember the pain of trying to get a recording without that tape hiss. Number 4, related to this, is noise floor. I'm recording now in a digital environment. This is not a treated room. I actually have my monitor speakers on, I've just realized. So there's going to be a little bit of fallback here. Yet, using a $100 microphone, I can get an almost pristine quality recording. It's amazing. Like the noise floor is not a problem. And this is the thing, a lot of folks that come from analog into digital, they think that they have to hit those transformers hard like we used to have to do. The reason you used to have to turn it up and gain it up and make sure you had a really hot signal was that if you didn't and it was too quiet and you went to turn it up, guess what? You were also turning up the noise floor, which is that, again, that hissing kind of sound that you hear at the bottom end. And I go back and listen to my tapes and I'm like, yeah, I could try and clean these up, but it makes me remember the pain of it all, of the noise floor. Number 5, let's talk about editing. Holy. The fact that we can click a mouse and fly things around, that we can delete things, that we can split things, that we can move things, that we can completely rearrange an entire song. We can move the chorus to the front and the verse to the back, and we can do it all with a couple of clicks or a couple of taps of our finger. If you were in the analog world, you would remember that you better have your arrangement pretty tight before you go to record, especially if you're paying for studio time. If you're doing it yourself, it's still a pain because if you want to change up your arrangement, you've already recorded your first track on your tape. Yeah, in the old days, what you'd do is you get a razor blade and you'd split the tape, and that would be your editing. It's kind of why you see those scissors as the split. It's because originally, like the whole thing was that you would have to cut the tape and then you would have to literally stick 2 pieces of tape back together. Can you imagine that? Like imagine these days we want things to be on the grid and perfectly timed and to the metronome and on the click track. And yet you had to work out, okay, how many samples of sound are there in 1 inch of tape? And the engineers at the time knew it. They would be able to cut things down and keep it right in the groove, right in the pocket. So you wanted to remove that extra verse, you had to go to the tape and cut it and bring it together. So yeah, we are absolutely spoiled by the fact that we can edit. Do we over-edit sometimes? Do we spend too much time doing non-linear editing as opposed to just playing through? I know I do. Yeah, if I can't sing that whole track all the way through, or if I can't play that guitar part, I'll punch in, I'll punch out. And yes, look, you could punch in and punch out. You could record in multiple takes and multiple tracks, but it was a lot harder to do. And you couldn't just grab it and fly it around and forget about just copying and pasting your first chorus and putting it in your second chorus. Look, I don't think that's a good idea anyway. If you're doing that, please go to the extra effort because you get a different energy every time you play something. And you don't want every chorus and every verse to sound exactly the same. Unless it's electronic music, and then you probably do. Number 6, you can record anywhere. And look, I know when you had your portable Tascam, the Porta Studio was called a Porta Studio because it was portable. But by the time you set up monitor speakers, headphones, and get all your inputs in, your external effects were plugged in, you've plugged in your mics and your guitars, and you've mic'd up your drum kit, you ain't going nowhere. Compared to 2025, when you have a band in a box or a garage band in your pocket, and you can actually use this to create music. And not only that, you can use it to create music. You can record anywhere, and you've got a whole bunch of stuff built in here. It was an absolute blank slate. Sure, you might be able to plug in a synthesizer or a Roland 808 and get a beat behind you and then put a drum machine and then play along to it. And I know many of us did that back in the day. But Yeah, there was the portability that we have now is quite ridiculous. The fact that I can take an iRig, I can take my iRig Pro IO, a guitar and a microphone and a guitar cable and a mic lead and my iPhone and go anywhere. I've recorded in caravans, at caravan parks, and in cabins and in hotel rooms. I've recorded in my bedroom, in my cupboard, in my laundry, in my kitchen, in my lounge room, in my backyard. There's virtually nowhere I haven't recorded. And it can only do that because the gear that we have these days is so portable. Whether you're using a laptop or an iPad or an iPhone, you've got that portability and you can take your music with you. Not to mention listening everywhere. Again, if you want to get a listen, you're trying to get your master or your final mix right, you can just throw it on your phone and put it in your car and play it on your Bluetooth speaker and stick some headphones on and go for a walk and listen to it on earbuds. So you have the flexibility to do stuff everywhere. You're not stuck in a space and you get the same quality that we got in these big spaces back in the day. So yeah, portability for the win. Number 7, sharing your music. I kind of alluded to it before. But the good old days, to share your music with someone, you would have to basically invite them to your house and kind of tie them to a chair and say, "Hey, listen to my new rad track." And they'd be like, "Oh, can I at least have like what was the 1990s appropriate? Have you got a Sub Zero or a UDL that I can drink while you do that, or a West Coast wine cooler?" Sorry, those are all those are all Australian things. Yeah, have you got a 90s appropriate beverage at least while I listen to this? Or you send them your tape. Or worse than that, you sell them your tape. You play a gig, you play a house party. Oh, I've got tapes in the car, $5. And next time you see them, you're like, what did you think of the tape? And you see it sitting there, still unopened in the shrink wrap, and you're like, guess you loved it. Whereas now, you can share your music. You can share your music on social media. You can share your music on platforms like SoundCloud and slaps.com. You can share your music everywhere with everyone at any time. And you can find an audience. No longer do you have to have a captive audience that you force to listen to your music and care about your stuff. And your mum's like, this is lovely. I'll send a copy of this tape to your nan. And then your nan gets a copy of your tape and it's got song titles like Go Down and Teaser F Word. And then you realize that you're a little bit of a gross teenager. But that's maybe a more personal story for another day. But being able to share stuff so easily and just with the rest of the world, it is awesome for a few reasons. Not only because you can get your stuff out there, but you can share it with other people and get feedback. And I've said this for ages now. The whole reason that I have create, record, release as my mantra around here is that I genuinely believe the releasing part, and look, releasing doesn't have to mean sharing with the world, but sharing with someone. If you just go create, record, create, record, create, record, you're writing songs and you're recording them, you're writing songs, you're recording them, you're never releasing, therefore you're never sharing, you're never learning. You don't know what you're doing well, what you're crushing, you don't know what you're needing to work on. There's a whole lot of things that you can learn and benefit from by sharing your music. Is it scary? Yes. Is it daunting? Yes. Is it not for everyone? Yes. So if you don't want to share your music and you get joy out of making it for yourself and an audience of one, more power to you. You do you, boo. But for a lot of folks, sharing music has just meant I've seen so many people in the community develop their skills because they're sharing their music and they're getting feedback and they're taking that feedback on board and making their next song even better. Number 8's related to that. And look, am I sponsored by DistroKid and therefore have a very strong opinion that people should distribute their music? Yes, I am. Is a defense for that I was using DistroKid to distribute my music for several years before they were a sponsor of this channel? Yes, I was. So the fact that we can distribute our music, think about how we distributed music in 1995. CDs were around. My first demo tape was literally a demo tape. In 1995, CD production was expensive. The first master CD, so when we recorded, my band called Scarpa, we recorded, and look, we recorded to digital, but it was a digital 8-track, like a Roland 8-track digital studio, in some guy's house. He had a house with like carpets, and he'd smashed windows to run cables through. It smelt like weed, because of course it did. And we recorded, and then he recorded that, mastered that to DAT, a DAT tape. And then we got those DAT tapes. To get the DAT tape put onto a CD, one CD was $100. $100. So you can imagine that the duplication costs were astronomical in 1995 for actually getting a bunch of CDs printed. So it was tapes. And the tapes themselves were, I think, in the vicinity of $10 each. They weren't cheap. I'm pretty sure we sold them at a loss. I think we sold them for $5, and I'm pretty sure they cost us 8 or 10 per. But the idea was you got your demo tape out there, you gave it to venues, you gave it to your friends, you tried to get people to come to your gigs. And that's just the way it was. Compare that to distribution now, where you can go onto any of the major streaming platforms in the world and type in Pete Johns, and you find my album, you find my EPs, you find my singles. And anyone can do that. I'm not special. You can do that. DistroKid, save 7% off your first year on any DistroKid plan. Musician plan starts at $22.99. What are you waiting for? So, yeah, the fact that we can distribute our music and share it with the world and feel like you're part of the music industry. Now, are there drawbacks to that? Do some people think that the barrier of entry is now too low and there's too much crappy music? And now we have AI music. And now the whole music industry has been ruined. I would argue that having the possibility to have more people share more music in more places is a general overall positive for society. Does it mean that there's some risks? Sure. And does it mean also that it's harder for the people at the very top? A little bit. Yeah. Because someone like Lil Nas X will stick Old Town Road and do 20 versions of it on SoundCloud and get a massive following and then get Billy Ray Cyrus to sing on it and then have a number one hit. And is that taking away from studio musician that was just like, but I liked it the old way, where only rich people that were already successful could afford studio time and could afford promotion and could afford distribution and could afford to find fans? Yeah, I think it's better. You think it's worse? I'd love to hear it. Honestly, this is a subjective thing. This is your opinion, my opinion. I just happen to think that 2025 has its flaws, has its problems. When it comes to home recording and it comes to home recording artists, it's an absolute blessing. Number 9, plugins and gear in general, outboard gear, doing things in the box as opposed to outside of the box. Now, I know, I'm also nostalgic. I have a Zoom effects box that's like a rack mount thing up in my cupboard. I used it for 3-4 years, had lovely lush reverbs and digital delays on there, and I would have to plug that in. If I wanted some reverb on my vocals or on my guitar, I would have to plug it through the Zoom. And it was literally a plug-in. A lot of folks these days, I don't know that they spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that the reason that we call them plugins is because you used to have to actually plug in the gear. And it wasn't this whole thing of, I've recorded this clean, what plugins shall I now add? Because you couldn't do that. I mean, you could, but guess what? You'd have to play it back through the plugin, through the outboard gear, and then re-record it to another track. More noise floor, more hiss, more lack of quality. And yes, there were sends and receives and ways to do things a bit differently and record it to a separate track as just effects. Yep, I get it. But for the most part, if you wanted to record through a compressor, you plugged in a compressor and you recorded your vocals. You set your levels, you recorded your vocals, and they were baked in. You wanted that digital delay on your guitar. You better set that digital delay to the right timing for your track, because there ain't no going back and tweaking it afterwards. So the very fact that we now have an infinite amount of plugins, of outboard gear, no one owns an LA2A compressor. No one owns any of these reverb units and delay units anymore. You might have the plugin of something that emulates something that's real. No one's got the real deal. Let's be honest. And that's not a bad thing. Some people love it. Some people want to have a whole room full of analog gear and love the whole idea of plugging things in and unplugging things and moving things around. I don't. I love the fact that all the things are contained within my digital device. And if I want to, after the fact, go, this vocal would have sounded much better with some slapback delay, I don't need to go and find a delay box and plug that in and re-sing the part. I just press a button. Has it made us lazy? Has it made us overuse plugin? Has it made it do things like mix with our eyes and not with our ears sometimes? Yes. There's limitations, there's drawbacks, there's things that are going to be negative, but do the pluses outweigh the minuses? Again, personal opinion, I think so. Which brings us to number 10, and that's you. That is community, because as a card carrying introvert, it was always very hard for me to get involved. I had absolute imposter syndrome. When I went to open mics or to gigs or to venues or even walked into a music store, I had an instant feeling of inferiority. Let's just be honest. It is and was what it was. And to a certain degree, I still feel the same way. I'm socially awkward. I'm happy to say that in person, I don't talk like this. I don't have the confidence. If I was standing, talking, having a one-on-one conversation with a music promoter, I wouldn't be as confident as I am talking to a microphone, a webcam. See, I don't even know what I'm talking to. I'm getting nervous just thinking about it. So it was much more difficult. And look, yeah, there were some people that could just do it. I had friends, I had mates that they had all these friends. They knew all these people. Like, oh, that's the guy that runs the blues festival. And oh, that's the guy that plays drums for this band. And yeah, you can do it. But man, was it a lot harder. The internet and social media, for all of its flaws and foibles, has made being a card-carrying introvert so much more pleasant because you can find your people. You can find the groups, you can find the communities, you can find the family, for want of a better word, that resonates with you. And I'm part of many communities, like the overall home recording community. And yes, there are subsets and sections of that, and some of them are great and some of them are not so great. But I've found like a lovely group of people that are great people and also great music producers. They care about you because it's got to be about that, doesn't it? As much as we like good music and we like gear and we like the plugins and we like the technology and we like the digital stuff, it's got to be good people there too. Otherwise, what's the point? Music, in my opinion, is a way of communicating thoughts, ideas, and feelings with another human. This is why I'm kind of raging against the machine of AI and robot technologies and robots coming in and taking our jobs as music creators. I think robots should be doing the things that we need done that are dangerous for humans to do, or tedious for humans to do, or can cause injury to humans, or free us up to do more creative endeavors. If AI could please come in here, put my dishes in my dishwasher, clean up my dog's doo-doos, and feed my children, hey, bring it on. Bring on Rosie the robot from the Jetsons and do all those things. And then leave me an extra couple of hours a day to spend time with those lovely people and dogs and what was the other thing? Dishwasher. Hugging my dishwasher. I never spent enough time with you anymore since you turned into a robot. But you know what I mean, right? Being able to have that additional leisure time, because that's what it was all about. We went through the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, the Technology Revolution, and we were promised every time that we would have to do less physical demanding manual labor and we would have more time to spend enjoying the things that we love doing, contributing to our community and to society, and spending time with our family and friends. Has that ever happened? No. So community is my number 10. And I think if you the number one thing in those 30 years is the fact that you exist. This is my job. I've heard so much music and music where I know the person personally and they're expressing something to me and I'm hearing it and I'm laughing or I'm smiling or I'm crying or I'm getting angry or I'm rocking the frick out. Whatever it is, it's generating a human emotion in me from another human. And to me, that's the absolute best thing about music and being a home recording artist in 2025. Thanks so much for listening to this little rant here, folks. I would love to get your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions. If you would like to, you may drop those in the comments section below. If you're watching this live premiere, thank you. If you're watching on the replay, thank you. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out if you would be so kind. Don't forget you can head over to studiolivetoday.com. There you'll find all the ways to support me. Donations, always appreciated, never expected. You can join the Patreon. You can join the YouTube community. Hey, you can join the Create, Record, Release Facebook group and share your music with other like-minded cool people. All those things are available for you there. Thanks so much for watching this one, folks, and I will see you on the next one. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, keep creating. Bye for now.